All right, welcome back to the Black Psychologist Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for watching. I am your humble host and clinician, Dr. Kyle Osborne. And of course, I'm not here by myself. I'm here with my co host, the great, the famous, and sometimes infamous Dr. Jason Coleman.
What's
How are
going
you,
on,
good brother?
bro? I'm good, man. I'm good. What's going on today, bro?
Nothing, man, nothing. Just chilling. We here at the beginning of the week. So,
We got a lot in the news this week, man. We got a lot in
absolutely.
the news.
Absolutely. How was your week, man?
It was good, man. It was productive. It's cold though out here. I mean, I was in Philly this weekend, but I'm in Jersey now, so it's cold out here, man. It's,
Okay.
it's, it's actually snowing right now a little bit. Flakes.
Yeah, I saw
What
that.
y'all dealing with? Oh, you saw that?
Yeah, saw that, man. So yeah, the weather was like great last week. Now we back to typical winter weather.
Yeah, in
So
March.
yeah, but pretty
So,
much unpredictable, man.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's fun.
so we'll get into it. First and foremost, we're still gonna continue celebrating our women. It's still Women's History Month. Now every month is Women's History Month, but they're observing it in particularly a month. So we definitely want to give a shout out and acknowledgement to all of the women all over the world. Without you, there is no us, pretty much. So
Absolutely.
we want to continue to represent and continue to acknowledge everybody. And so, with that being said, the first thing that we're going to start off with is we're going to talk about the Norman High School girls basketball team. So, for some people, they may have heard about this. This has gained a lot of attention over the past few days, but there's a Norman High School girls basketball team, which is located in Oklahoma. And unfortunately, they're gaining some attention, not so much or not just with their talent on the court, but what also took place even before the game. So I'm gonna give a little backstory about what took place. All right. So Norman High School girls was playing a I want to say it was the semifinal basketball team or a semifinal basketball game. And what they decided to do before the game is that they took a knee, right? When we know that, why teams are taking a knee to, bring attention to racial oppression and injustice. And
Right.
so what took place was that while the team, mind you, this is a high school girls basketball team. So I want everybody to keep that in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
While they were taking a knee, the broadcasters that were calling the game um, had these terrible, reprehensible comments. And I'm going to say the comments for you guys. So as they were taking a knee, the commentators said, and I quote, "They're kneeling. Fuck them." All right. This is the announcer of Matt Rowan, right? He says they're kneeling. Fuck them. I hope Norman gets their ass kicked. Fucking niggers. All right. So this is being said at and directed at high school girls basketball team. So
Right.
of course the microphone was on, and it just went from there, right? So not that these girls are already dealing with the other competitor on the floor. Now they have to deal with these racist slurs and remarks that are being made by so-called professionals or adults, right? That are supposed to be there just calling the game and doing the play-by-play. So what I am happy to report is that one, of course, this gained attention and the broadcaster, they're dealing with that situation. But the girls went on to play in a game a couple days ago and they won their state title. So I definitely want to give them all the credit in the world for not only, playing against another competitor or another team, but also going against this, right? Because this is exactly the reason why they are kneeling. So what's your take on that, Dr. Jeff?
I mean, it's one of those situations where it's like you're shocked, you're appalled, but you're not surprised, right? I don't know if that was 10 years ago. I know it was 5 years ago, but it kind of reminds me of that situation with Imus. That was the radio announcer.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, with the Rucker girls, right?
Right.
Right.
So same type of like, I don't even want to call it an offhanded comment because it's a racist comment. But again, shocked, appalled, surprised? No, right? So is it reprehensible? Yes. But I think, the bigger issue is kind of what like allows these issues to kind of continue to exist, right? Because most logical people or people of good moral compass, let me say that, are going to say that this is a reprehensible thing to be involved with, right? But the problem is exactly what you said. I'm not condoning racism. I'm not condoning any of this, but they said this about children. Right? These are children.
Right.
These is kids. So what level of ignorance or what level, I don't want to call, what level of ignorance do you have to have, even if you have these views, to direct them at a child, right? And to me, it just goes, when I say bigger issue, it goes to what are the conditions that allow this to go on, right? Like, they don't look at these kids as human. You gotta dehumanize somebody before you can talk to somebody like that. You know, whoever this person is that made these comments, I don't want to say how would they feel, right? But what would they do if somebody talked to their mother like that? In whatever context whatever context would impact them in that way, or their daughter, right? But again, I don't want to get away from the fact that what allows these kind of, with the conditions that the environments that allows this to exist, is that you got to dehumanize somebody before you can make comments like that about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's crazy, and the fact that this is a grown person talking to these kids like that, is crazy. So now you said they were dealing with the situation.
Right. Now, so here's the most laughable aspect of it, right? It's not funny, the situation, but here's the most laughable part of it. So he came out and said afterwards that, all right, you know, I made inappropriate and racist comments believing that the microphone was off, right? However, right, this is what he said. However, let me state immediately that that's no excuse for such comments should have never been uttered. Here's another part. I will state that I suffer from type 1 diabetes. And during the game, my sugar was spiking. So while I'm not excusing my remarks, it's not unusual for when my sugar spikes that I become disoriented and I say things that are not appropriate as well as hurtful. I do not believe that I would have made such horrible statements absent my sugar spiking. So now
that
right?
may be true, but I think he left the end of the sentence out, right? He wouldn't have made those comments outside of his home, right? Because those are comments that I believe that this individual makes on a regular basis. Right?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, he said because the mic was on, he wouldn't,
right.
The mic was on, right? And here's the thing, right? Just so we rule this out, right? Because that's what we're in the business for, right? As clinicians, we rule things out. All right. First and foremost, if we're dealing with, high blood sugar, low blood sugar, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of patients, while I was working at Cooper Hospital that were dealing with and trying to have difficulty managing their blood sugar. All right. It's like, there is an aspect where it can cause cognitive impairments, or they call it like brain fog. And no means, right? And let me just throw this out there. These are the symptoms, right? Of these cognitive impairments due to, like, if you're having difficulty managing your diabetes, right? You have trouble concentrating, you have like mood swings, you have irritability, memory problems, you have headaches, irritability, I said that already, dizziness, confusion, and like difficulty problem solving. I don't know out of any of those symptoms that any of them say, like, well, I'm just gonna come out and start making racial slurs, right? Right? In no form or fashion are we really, like, are you really gonna play this off and try to attribute your behavior, right, to medical? If this is what we're doing, like, you really think that that's gonna fly? Like, you're gonna say and try to insult people and be like, oh, I was disoriented, so that's why it forces me to say these type of harmful statements. That's what he says, harmful statements.
I mean, it's ridiculous, obviously. The fact that he was allowed to release a statement, or that he still has a job, or that they're even considering it, is a little crazy to me. Because again, he said this to children, right?
Right.
We would, if a teacher talked to a student like that, they'd be fired that day. If the person that is working in food service and making sandwiches and serving your children food every day, if they talk to them like that, they'd be fired. If the bus driver talked to the kids like that, they'd be fired. Right. Why this person, is still employed or might still be employed, I don't know. but again, it just speaks to the cultural environment that we're in. And it's dangerous for kids, right? Because it's hard enough for them to have to focus on winning a state championship, right? But not only that, but they got to deal with, playing in this environment. So who knows what other things that, if they're allowing this in this type of conversation in this environment, just who knows what the other things that these kids have been exposed to,
Right. I mean, because you have to think, though, this is blatant racism, and how often has he been saying this when the microphone hasn't been on, right? How he's been, I imagine, calling these games for
Right.
probably X, Y amount of years. And when the mic's not on, when they're on commercial break, or when they're, not in play, like, what else has he been saying that
A
we're
whole
just not
bunch.
aware of?
Right. One good thing I wanted to kind of point out is that the Players Association, WNBA, reached out to the team and the girls just to kind of show support and congratulate them. So that's a good thing. I mean, again, the one, and we touched on this a bunch of times, like technology is helping us in this aspect, right? Because we're exposing somebody who is working around, children, working around minority children who doesn't need to be, right? So, and through technology, people are also allowed to show you support, right? From halfway across the world, from WNBA, different countries, different places. And we can also expose, people when they do make these kind of comments, where usually if they're in a certain state or in a certain environment or protected by a certain business, these things will be swept under the rug. So I think it's a good thing in terms of going viral, because again, it's a lesson, and the fall from grace, I think, does a lot more, for teaching people what proper decorum is, most of the time, because that's how individuals learn, man. They lose. You lose things. You lose money. You lose a job. You lose friends. Talking to people and engaging them in conversation, like, it is useful, but you know how it is. Especially when people are in positions of power, they dismiss you as emotional and move on. So
It's just unfortunate. Like you said, it's good that attention is being brought to individuals like that, and you're hoping that it gets them tossed out of here. It's just unfortunate for the girls that are playing this, that, again, because this is something that they got subjected to, right? This is
right.
traumatic for them. This is something that they're going to have to deal with, and I'm hoping that the school district out there is definitely offering them support, offering them services, because this is heavy. Again, these are
Right.
still children. As much as we want to say, you're in high school, you're becoming a young adult, but you're still a child, right? You're still, when you get subjected to this, how do you contextualize this? How do you process this information, especially in this day and age, right, where things are supposed to be quote unquote better, right? So, my heart goes out to them. I'm happy that they were able to press forward and win the state championship. So that that's a testament to how strong-willed they are, for them to be able to do this in spite of all the noise that's going on. And I'm hoping that all of them are getting the support from their families, and from the professionals and resources that are available to them. So, because this is not an easy process. This is still, even after they win the championship, there's still going to be some residual and things that are going to come up, and that they're going to be faced with after this. So but definitely, shout out to them. I'm happy that this it ended in this manner, and that they continue to get folks like this announcer, get them out of here, because they're hurting people. Absolutely.
I mean, I agree, man. It's not really much to disagree on that one. I definitely agree. Gotta get him out of there.
All right, so moving on to the next topic, what we have is something that's been long talked about in our circle and our profession, is the relationship between religion and mental health, right?
Right.
So historically, mental health and religion have been on two separate sides of the fence. It's always been, unfortunately, either or. So you either had
Right.
people that were either running to the pulpit, right, or they're running to the altar, or they're running to the therapist.
Right.
And so for a good deal of time, it wasn't crossing any other, right? You're not going to be, it's either or situation. And so I feel like that's something still in some circles, and depending on where you're located, it's still taboo, right? There's still some
Right.
things that, it's either we're either going to pray about it or you can go get professional help. So, an article came up where it talked about an individual who had recently attended a funeral, and he said it was like kind of good news, bad news, because at first, unfortunately, the funeral that he was attending, the person had death by suicide, and initially they thought it was a lynching. So, they were thinking bad news in the sense of this individual is another victim of, racial oppression, racial injustice, police brutality, and all these other different things that have been existed for years. And it came to find out that he actually took his own life, this individual, the funeral he's attending. And so it was good news in the sense that it wasn't oppression, it wasn't racial,
Right.
it's one of those things. However, it also highlighted, that this individual that was successful in committing suicide had been dealing with some issues for quite some time, that that he found that he had to resort to this act. So it brought up that conversation, or the topic of, how is that addressed? Is it a situation, how is it being brought forward, where you have maybe a member of your church or member of your congregation, and they're experiencing, mental health issues, whether it be depression or anxiety or whatever have you, which may have contributed to this person taking their own life. But what do you do? How is that handled, in that community? Is it a situation where it is just church, or is it like, do you reach out, or it can be difficult for that person, especially kind of given the stigma that kind of is been created over historically. So what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I think you said it with the last sentence. I mean, I don't think you could really have this conversation without talking about stigma, right? Because we're talking about African American communities in general, and the church has been a cornerstone of the community since the beginning. I mean, the stigma is prevalent, right? And it's common, and it's common for a lot of African American families, or just the general perception to be, like if you're experiencing mental health difficulties, specifically, you keep it to yourself, right? Or you keep it in your family,
Right.
because you don't want to embarrass your family, and the perception of you is going to be that you're weak, right? So I think, again, I think when you have that as the environment, then the natural inclination when somebody experiences something that's as stigmatizing as like depression or anxiety, maybe bipolar disorder, whatever those type of symptoms, schizophrenia, then your first probably call or thought is going to be to go to the church, for that assistance. Do I agree with it? No, not on that level. I feel like, spirituality is important. It's an important part of overall health. I feel like that personally, right? But I think that the same way, we minimize mental health too much, right? So it's like your mother, like mama's a good person to talk to, but she can't be your therapist, right? Your coach could be a good person to talk to, but he's not your therapist. Your church, your pastor, your deacon may be a person you trust and be a good person for spiritual guidance. But when it comes to depression and helping you deal with these depressive symptoms, he's not the guy, right? And we see people engage in this on a daily basis, but how many times did we hear, coming up from our mentors, if you break your leg, you don't pray over the person. Somebody would look at you like a crazy person if your child broke their leg, and
Right.
you can pray over them on their way to the hospital, right? Or when the doctor's working on them, right? But if your child broke their leg and you prayed over them and then just told them, put them in the bed and let them go to sleep, we will be calling the division. Why? Because it's neglect, right?
Right.
So if somebody is experiencing depressive symptoms and they could potentially go take their life, right? Or anxiety, and they could potentially start cutting and take their life. Why somebody would bring them to their pastor doesn't make any sense, But what I find with the individuals that actually do that is, when a parent usually does that, again, we talk about stigma. So that's a way to continue to keep it in the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in no way am I trying to talk disparagingly about people of faith or anything like that. I'm just saying, when we talk about boundaries and competency, you know, mental health, mental health and religion are totally different things, you know.
No, absolutely. Like I said,
What do you think?
I think it's in the sense, like you said, if you're still following the rubric or the idea of like you said, keeping it in house, right? We'll bring it to our pastor or our priest or our reverend, and he's gonna pray about it. He's gonna pray that we get better. Then, unfortunately, you're doing that individual that you are praying for more harm than good, right?
Right.
It's a situation where now this person, whatever they're experiencing, could potentially get worse because it's going on untreated. And so while I absolutely see the benefit of church, right? Because it's a situation. The purpose of church is the community aspect, right? You can have faith, or you can pray, you can do all these other different things in the comforts of your own house. You can do that on your
Right.
couch.
Right.
So I think people kind of get in the kind of misconstrued or misconception is that you need the church and we need everything. We got to put them on the prayer list, right? All the prayers, the more prayers, the better. And absolutely, I'm totally with that. But it's
Right.
also a situation, like you said, that they have clinicians, they have people for this purpose. And I think because, like you said, you gave the example of of the broken leg situations, that you can see a broken leg. Unfortunately, mental health is the invisible illness, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, you can't see someone experiencing depression or anxiety outside of the physical symptoms that you see. But for the most part, again, outside of, like I said, like a broken ankle, you can see someone who you can see that, so we have to get them some help. But if this person is not talking to anyone, this person is isolating themselves, this person is, experiencing some high anxiety, it's like, oh, well, we'll just bring them to the church. We're going to pray for them, pray that they get better, because they can't actually see it. So that unfortunately kind of reinforces, that situation. And then I think also, people get caught up on, the scripture, right? And
Right.
unfortunately, the downside, and again, not in a disparaging manager, come from a religious or, church background, but, the scripture and all these things can be very rigid at times. And so where it says, well, yeah, you're going to bring him to the Lord, you're going to all these other different aspects or things to that extent, people are going to follow that. They're going to follow that to the T, right?
Right.
And outside of, again, of it being a medical physician, it's like, no, we're just going to take it to our pastor, and our pastor and he'll, give his words of wisdom and something, that's related to the scripture, and we should be fine. But again, it just, in a lot of situations, can exacerbate the person's issues.
And I agree with you, and I'm gonna come at it from another perspective in terms of see, when you do that, this is the thing, right? You put a lot of weight on that person. I'm not faulting the people that go to their pastor, right? Because we need people that are in the church to in these leadership positions, right, to be comfortable enough and have the resources to refer these people to the proper individuals, right?
Right. Yeah.
And not try to counsel them themselves. Now, pastors have a right to counsel their members, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they start counseling them about mental health, when it comes to like depression and anxiety, and they're not licensed therapists, or don't have the training, it's irresponsible, right? Because the problem is it's they're not just offering social support, right? They are doing interpretation, right? So if an individual who's hearing voices or seeing images ends up with the wrong person who decides to interpret that, okay, and tell the person, you're gonna interpret a voice or image as a symptom, right? And you're gonna follow it down a road to determine a diagnosis and treatment, and
Mm-hmm.
but you have training, right? You've been trained in a certain model, right? But if you haven't been trained in that model, then who knows what your interpretation of those voices or those images could be. You get into the realm where you could potentially be telling somebody that they have demons or some type, whatever your interpretation may be. So I only say that to say, when you talk about it can exacerbate the problem. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because imagine somebody that's dealing with anxiety or symptoms of anxiety and schizophrenia, and they already think something is wrong with them, and then they go have counseling with somebody, and they tell them that they have a demon or bad spirits or whatever a person could say. You understand? That is something that we would never say. You know, that those are the things I'm thinking about, right? Because when you meet with patients, culturally, these things come up. You know what I mean? And when your religious leaders reinforce those things or introduce them into the conversation, you know, things can get crazy. So again, no way are we talking disparagingly about, you know, individuals or faith leaders. I recommend that my patients use, you know, church and spirituality related supports all the time. It's a good part of self-care. You know what I mean? But spirituality and mental health are two different things. Religion and mental health are two different things.
Yeah, the thing that comes up for me is trauma, right? Because that's heavily prevalent in our community. And how many times, again, how many members that are sitting in any particular church, especially in our community, have experienced trauma, right? So on Sunday, yeah, we got the service, but guess what? There are 6 other days of the week where you got real things happening around you, right? You've seen killings, you've seen people get robbed. You're a victim of whatever type of issue that may take place, right? Whatever real life event. And yeah, you can bring that, like you mentioned, for support. However, like again, that person that's re-seeing that trauma replay over and over again, that can't sleep, all the other different things, like you said, it really does fall on, okay, you're hoping that that particular, you know, petitioner or that person, you know, that religious leader is able to say, you know, this is beyond my scope. You know, you need, this is an individual that you need to see. And so that's something, you know, because I can be honest and sit here and say there are plenty of patients that I've seen, you know, and that, you know, absolutely, I'm promoting the support and the aid of, you know, spirituality or your religion is important to you. That's something you value. Absolutely. You know, we can absolutely, you know, bring that into the fold as support, because that's something that's been helpful for you in the past, and it can continue to be helpful for you as we move forward in treatment. However, you know, if you're seeing different scriptures and you say, Dr. Kyle, you know, the book of Job says such and such, or the book of Matthews, I'm going to say, well, okay, well, you know, there's a certain extent I can't go there to that particular point, because I'm not going to sit here and interpret scripture for you. Right. I'm not going to practice beyond what I'm trained in, you know? So it's a situation where you're hoping that, like you were saying, that they're able to refer out and under everyone's able to practice in their scope. But absolutely having that working relationship, there have been plenty of situations where we've reached out to people in the community. You know, there are people that came into the hospital and we're reaching out, and maybe if they're, you know, their families, or not just families, the you know, their religious leaders or pastors can come out and visit the hospital during visiting hours and things, because we know, again, like you said, this is somebody that they trust. This is someone that they've known for years, and it's, you're able to help, right? It's an aid to mental health. It's an aid to treatment, but you fall into dangerous waters when you're just looking at it as just the end all be all.
Yeah, and I think again, there's nothing wrong with, because again, people are going to trust who they trust, and relationships are going to be built in different places with different people. So some people are going to go to their primary care physician, their pediatrician. That's going to be the first person they talk to about depression and anxiety. Some people are going to talk to their coach. That's going to be the first person they talk to. Some people are going to talk to their pastor, you know. But what we got to say, what we got to put ourselves in a position is where those individuals, like you say, when it gets to a point where they're like, listen, this is beyond my scope, and resist the temptation to interpret, right? If you're a coach, resist the temptation to interpret and say, oh man, you just need to work out a little, right? If you're a pastor, you got to resist the temptation to be like, oh, you need to just read more of your scripture, right? Because intrusive thoughts are intrusive thoughts. You know, you understand what I'm saying? Hopelessness is hopelessness. You know, if a person is overeating, undereating, neglecting their own care, you know, these are real things, right? So pushing somebody to exercise or read this or read that, you know, again, as a supportive mechanism, it's helpful, you know. But I bring you back, for anybody that could potentially be offended, I will bring them back to the broken leg analogy. You know what I mean? If somebody broke their leg, would you read them a scripture? Possibly, because you want them to heal up real good, right? But you would read it after they got tended to by the doctor. You understand? So that's my point. You know, if somebody is depressed, will we tell them to exercise and get out and get some air and read books? Yes, we would, right? But these are things that we're going to be doing to activate their body, right? To get them moving, right? These are things we're going to be doing to address, to address the psychomotor retardation, all of those things, but these aren't things that we're going to be doing as necessarily the only thing, right? These are going to be supplements to the treatment that the person is getting, right? So that's the point, is that we want relationships with these people, because eventually we're going to be sending them back, right?
Right.
Once the person makes a certain amount of progress in treatment, we're going to be sending them back to the coach to exercise. We're going to be sending them back to church. But we want, we just want individuals to be able to refer out when, the symptoms or the situation gets past a certain point.
What I've tried to do is kind of meet them halfway, because I've done a couple engagements, like, at my church, or I've even talked to people, like some members, just kind of here and there sparingly about like just different things. And I say, listen, you can still maintain that sense of, I get it. You don't want your information to get out. Like nobody would. I totally get that. So I said, when you talk to a therapist or you talk to a psychologist or something, or a counselor, like it's still confidential. Like nobody has to know. Right. Like it's the same way how, you want to talk to the reverend, you want to talk to the pastor after church, or you coming in during the middle of the week to talk to him and have a session. That still applies when, you're talking to one of us. I said, no one has to know. Like, I get it. Like this stuff is heavy and it's not, for general consumption. So it's still, confidential. It's still not going to get out unless you want the information, whoever you're comfortable sharing with. So it's still that element where people don't have to know and think that you're crazy because you're going to see a therapist and so on and so forth. So, that's, again, it's like the same thing. It's kind of bringing it out, and also it's like, hey, I'm putting it back on them. It's like, listen, God, Lord, whomever, your higher power may be, I imagine doesn't want you to continue to suffer in the dark, right? He shines light on things. So, just trying to meet them where they're at and say, like you said, dispel some of those misconceptions or the stigma that's been going along, that has been historically existing with this particular situation. It's like you said, it's an aid. Like, we'll work with you. We're not against it. It's not an either or thing. It's an in addition to that, work with somebody that's actually trained to help you with these symptoms so they don't continue to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Again, I don't think anybody does it with malicious intent. I think people do it out of a place where they want to help, and they're using their knowledge and their experience the best way they can. But again, it's about competency. We got to know, we got to and boundaries, and we kind of got to stay within the boundaries of where we're trained.
Absolutely. All right, so something that came up, article that came across my desk like last week, was Michelle Obama. All right, again, because it's History Month, so I'm all for it. And I love Michelle Obama. Like, I don't know who doesn't. Like, she's amazing. See what I mean? Like, that's the crush, man. It's Michelle Obama, right? So she talked about on her podcast, and then also on People Magazine, I think it was, that she had experienced low grade depression, especially heavy last year with the pandemic and with also the racial things. I'm gonna read her quote. So she said, "Depression is understandable in these circumstances, during these times. To think somehow that we can just continue to rise above all the shock and trauma and all the upheaval that we've been experiencing without feeling in any way is unrealistic." Right. So she mentioned this is one of the reasons why we need to talk more about mental health, because everybody deals with trauma, anxiety, and difficulties in different ways. Hold on. She said, hold on. Yeah, so she said she was experiencing low-grade depression, and we've had the continuing killing of Black men at the hands of police, and just seeing the video of George Floyd experiencing that for 8 minutes, that's a lot to take on, not to mention being in the middle of a quarantine. So, yeah, what are your thoughts about, her statement on that?
I mean, I agree. I think a lot of minorities can identify with this. and then on a lot of people in general, not only minorities, but especially minorities who might have had family members, in this situation. She referenced George Floyd, and she's absolutely right. But for me, again, it's about, the bigger issue, whether it be Ahmaud Arbery, all the way back to, Trayvon Martin, Walter Scott. I remember watching him get shot in the back,
Yeah.
The only reason, Fernando Castillo, the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I remember watching these people be murdered on my phone. I've seen some of the videos 10, 20 times, all of Tamar Rice, another name that comes up. So all of these people we've seen murdered,
Yeah.
Eric Garner, so the reason why, I agree with her is because, I've been affected too, and I think her using the kind of the term low grade depression is kind of a good way to say it, because of course we're using lay person's terms, so we're not necessarily talking about clinical depression, but she's talking about intense sadness, right?
Right.
And I know I experienced that, and I'll give you a prime example. Just every time I see somebody murdered on my phone and the video comes up, it's two thoughts that come into my mind. Number one, not again, and two, it could have been me, right? Because I've been pulled over, I've had guns, pulled out on me, all of those things by police officers, right? So it's not again, and it could have been me, right? Over and over and over. And I think that just seeing these images and being inundated by these images day after day, it does something to you, And there's been days where I've been at work, and it's been like 12 o'clock, the afternoon, and I'm like, well, why do I feel like this? And then I'll remember what's going on, or some days I'll feel the opposite, like I'll be walking around work, and I won't be upset, but I'll be looking around at everybody else, because I know how I feel. Like I feel anxious inside. I feel like, yo, I'm working. I'm getting ready to go see a patient, and people out there protesting because somebody just got murdered in the street on my phone. Everybody should be upset about this. So it affects everybody. So the fact that she's kind of speaking truth to power and talking about it, I agree, and I think a lot of people can identify, right? Because they're gonna be some people who aren't Black, aren't white, but they're gonna look and they're gonna be like, Tamar Rice was a child.
It's like with all of those killings, with all the people you mentioned, when you see something like that's gonna trigger an increase in trauma and your own anxiety, right? Because like you said, it's something that you see and it could have been you, right? Or you see, your grandparents, you see your parents, right? You're seeing the same things that we grew up watching, right? With the hoses and the dogs and, the police. We saw that, right? We saw that in black and white.
Right.
Now we're seeing it right here on our phones, like you said, almost real time, like right after it happens. And so absolutely, and I think one in our community especially, like it results, right? It stays there. It's not like it might just you watch it on the news for a week or two and then it goes away. No, this stays in our community. Like this stays with us individually. All right. This is why we know the names, right? This is why we do have this fluctuation in our mood, in our thinking. And I'm happy that she is continuing to bring it up and speak about it because it's Michelle Obama, right? It's her platform. Again, this is also bringing to the point and highlighting that this doesn't discriminate. Just because when you're thinking of someone that was the former first lady, has all these various resources, has been everywhere, like this still hits home for her, right? This still affects her in a manner of, like you said, she's experiencing increased sadness. She's experiencing these low moods, and she has all the resources in the world. But this is a real thing. Like this is what's happening. And when these things take place, yeah, absolutely. It doesn't just go away just because we turn off CNN, right? It doesn't just go away because nobody is no longer watching these protests or we're no longer out there protesting. No, this stays with us. And this has a severe impact on us.
I agree, right? Because again, the problem now is like when I see these videos, I mean, I look at myself, but it hits me harder, right? Because I got a 17-year-old nephew, right? I have an 11-year-old nephew. They boys, they're gonna be driving.
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna be out here. You know, and then the fact that, you know, we see these incidents, you know, going on time after time after time, and then you can turn on the news and you'll still have people to tell you comply, 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 and you'll be alive. You know, I mean, it seems not to do it justice to say that it makes me feel bad because it's more than it makes me feel bad, but it makes me less than hopeful for the future, right? Because you have individuals who still don't realize that the people that are pulling those triggers, it's as similar, it almost brings me back to the first story that we had, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of person do you have to be to call, to first to say to any child, fuck them? Any child,
right?
Fuck them.
No, totally.
Right?
Out of pocket.
And then to call a child a fucking nigger. What kind of person do you have to be, right? In terms of morality, you have no values, right? So again, but a similar type of person, right, is gonna be able to dehumanize and label a child like Tamar Rice or label one of these kids a problem child, right? Mm-hmm. These are the same type of people, you know, that know the story, you know, can know Trayvon Martin was murdered, right? And are posting pictures of him hanging out with his friends, you know, doing things, trying to project him in an image as if he was a bad kid, right? We still have this mindset, right? And you still have people searching for the justification, right? But the reason why I bring it back to the first one is because you have to dehumanize people, and for you to be able to accept that. You know, a large portion of this country can look at their phone and look at Fernando Castillo get murdered in front of his girlfriend, right? And watch Walter Scott get killed and go on CNN and say, just comply and you'll be alive, right? Mm-hmm. But black people just need to be more patriotic and respectful. And if you can say that and sleep, because I can't sleep some nights when I see this stuff. I can't sleep. If you can say that and sleep, you know, then you have effectively dehumanized the victim, mm-hmm. right? Because I can't sleep when I see a child murdered on my phone, you know, and it sickens me even more when I'm in certain environments and nobody cares, you know. So again, for Michelle Obama, who probably finds out about incidents that are occurring in little corners of the country and the world that I would never hear about because I'm not as important as her, low-grade depression, I get it.
Yeah,
I understand it.
And I'm hoping that with her speaking out, that again, it brings more attention to it. And I'm hoping that, you know, we, especially as a community, but not, you know, just us, but everybody, that they start to, you know, take heed to that, you know, start recognizing, you know, that, like you mentioned, if you're at work and, like, again, you start to feel that frustration, you know, you're feeling that inner conflict, you're feeling that incongruence, like, you know, this is a sign. That's something, right? Like we've talked about in previous pods, you know, your body's going to tell you something, right? You're going to get these warning signs. And so, you know, depression or anxiety or all these other different things that we experience, right? They're not always just like that. They creep up on you, right? Especially because when we continue to see these images, these videos on our phone, yeah, it's going to continue to take an effect. And you don't know how over time, how it is going to impact you, right? How you getting that, whether it be low grade, high grade, whatever the situation may be, whatever the severity, it's going to have an impact. So I'm hoping that people start to develop more of that self-awareness about, you know what, I've been noticing that, you know, my moods have been changing, right? Maybe I have been more sluggish. I've been more reclusive, and not just due to COVID, but just kind of due to my interaction, right? I want people to start to kind of check themselves and be able to gauge themselves and read up more about what depression looks like. Read up what more anxiety looks like. Read up on these things because it's important, you know? Michelle's talking about it. She's talking about it for a reason. She wants to get that word out there. So just like we use this platform to continue and promote mental wellness, I want people to really start to take that time out and start thinking about how things have changed. How have your views changed? How have your attitudes changed? All these other different things. Because it's important and they do have an impact on us, whether we know it or like to, think that they don't. We think we're able to put things to the side, but no, it creeps up on us, and it can be very dangerous if it continues to go just untreated or unaddressed. So, but it was definitely a good article, and I'm happy that she's speaking on it.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, obviously Michelle Obama is, personifies excellence in every way, but the fact that she's speaking truth to power on this one, I gotta give her credit. Good articles today.
All day. All right, so that brings us to comedian and actor, former SNL actor. I think he was on there for a few years. Will Forte is coming up with a new TV show called a Expiration Date. And so the premise of this show is that he's an individual who's experiencing a lot of grief. Is that I think some family members have passed away, and he's not having a good time. As anybody who loses somebody important to you, grief is heavy. I think
Right.
that's an understatement. And so he finds a life insurance policy that'll actually cover suicide, but the caveat or the condition is that you have to wait a year from when you start the policy. You have to wait a year until you actually, if you attempt or are successful at suicide, that the policy or the insurance company will actually pay out on that cause of death. So the premise of the show is that in between this time, after he starts the policy, it's a year between he's eligible to get covered for his thoughts of having suicide. And so a lot of people are outraged. A lot of networks, a lot of different people of interest are upset and thinking that this show is detrimental, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible, negative connotations as far as mental health. Is not taking mental health as serious, all these other different things. So what jumped out at you as you read this article and you brought it forward?
I mean, they have the right to do it, but I think it's irresponsible. I mean, I'm not going to specifically get into every behavior, but there's certain behaviors, in our society that are reprehensible, right? So, there are certain behaviors, and I'm not talking about suicide specifically, but there's certain things that even if we reference them and document them, like in movies and film, they do it in a certain way, right? We do it without glorifying
Right.
it, right? So you can cover sexual assault that's covered in movies all the time, right? But it's not glorified in movies, right? And I'm not conflating the two things, right? I'm not conflating the two things, but I also think like suicide is that serious of a subject that we should go out of our way not to glorify it, right? So this show gives any inkling that this is a game, right? And that this is, not saying it's fun, but we're sensationalizing, we're romanticizing suicide, then it shouldn't air, right? If it's documenting, what causes a person to take their life, what are the factors around that? To me, that's a little different. It might be heavy content that's appropriate for certain people and not appropriate for certain people. But if we're taking somebody killing themselves or somebody feeling so overwhelmed that they don't want to live anymore, and we're like putting things around it to make it palatable as a show, and ultimately do what? Pull more people in, teenagers, kids, everyone, and some vulnerable people inevitably. I think it's irresponsible. What about you?
Yeah, as I was reading through the article, and like you said, we talked about this a little bit last week, right? We talked about how in media or in film or TV shows, like you said, they're gonna try to find the entertainment aspect of it.
Of everything,
yeah, this could be really dangerous. Because it's like suicide is the backdrop of this, right? And I feel like and again, the show hasn't aired yet, but just kind of from reading from what was published in this article is that I feel like suicide is going to be the backdrop. Like he's having some serious intent where obviously he's, he chose this policy for a reason, right? Because it's the
Right.
only policy that's gonna pay out for when he does, eventually attempt the act. And I feel like, okay, they're probably going to be doing other different things amongst, in I guess that year time frame that's going to make up for. I'm sure they're going to be all types of adventures and other different things that are getting plot twists. But my thing is that I'm concerned about, it's dangerous if you're not going to address the aspect of suicide itself, right? Like, are you in this show? Are they going to, okay, he's experiencing grief. So is he going to get any form of treatment or help? Right. Because I feel like that gets left out, right? When you romanticize any type of mental illness or any type of mental health on television or film, they tend to leave out the treatment aspect of it. They're just like, okay, the person's suffering from this, he's suffering from anxiety or schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever the situation may be. But they tend to leave out the treatment aspect of it. And I feel like this is where it's dangerous, because when you leave that aspect of it, it's just like, oh, he's just going about his day, having these different adventures. And that may or may not result in him going forward with the policy or going forward with the act so he can get the payout or his family can get the payout, or he won't. Like, that's the dangerous aspect of it that I feel like this is kind of really dipping themselves into, because I feel like they're going to leave out the serious notion that no, this is suicide. Like he's, he has some serious ideation on what he wants to go forward with. And I feel like they're going to leave out well, is he getting help for his grief? Right? Is
Right.
he,
Kind of
are they treating that
those
aspect?
kind
How
of
is that being addressed? Like they're just leaving that part out of it. So that's where I feel like this is definitely dangerous, because it minimizes suicide. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to do this in a year from now. Yeah, I'll get to it.
I mean, I agree. I definitely think, they're kind of romanticizing it, and, for lack of a better term, like the treatment portion of it and how difficult it is and what people go through during that portion is kind of gets lost in the sauce, right? Because it doesn't really make for an interesting movie, unless the therapist is doing something crazy or they're having an affair in the session or something that doesn't happen, right? So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago about, when we put mental illness or mental health disorders into movies, there's that entertainment factor, right? So the factual part of it gets lost, So again, I think the one thing I kind of wanted to bring up about this movie is that the article did say it's still in production. So it hasn't yet been ordered to a series yet. So hopefully, the kind of the publicity and technology, right, getting involved in terms of the publicity generated from this story, hopefully it won't come out, because I'm definitely not going to see it, but I don't think, from what they've offered, I don't think, it's going to be beneficial. I feel like if anything, it may inspire, certain individuals who are already vulnerable, and may push them, over that edge and make them decide to actually harm themselves. So I think that's a possibility and a risky one.
Yeah, because I feel like throughout the show, it's gonna be the will he, won't he,
Right.
what's gonna happen, what's gonna push him over the edge. Oh, that's dangerous, because that's really painful. You have people that are really experiencing this, and I like. I don't know, man. I kind of cringe when I saw this, and I know Will Forte. He's a funny guy, and comedians and actors are able to make anything entertaining. I get that aspect of it, but I just feel like this being an ongoing thing, this could be really dangerous, painful for a lot of individuals, whether they're reading it or not. But like I said, it minimizes and kind of makes light of the situation, and it plays the backdrop. And that's yeah, they definitely need to redo this, and kind of think twice about this one, because I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Nah.
We got to keep our ear to the street and see if there's an update on this, but hopefully it won't be ordered to series.
Hopefully not. So we'll see, man. It's Hollywood, so yeah, I don't know, man. Anything to get ratings, I guess. Anything else you got online for us, good brother?
Not really. I mean, good articles this week though. A lot of different subjects. So good articles this week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank everybody for, of course, tuning in and watching on YouTube. Absolutely watch, like, subscribe, comment. That's something we want everyone to continue to do. Again, always continue to bring up and comment on maybe on some topics that are relevant to what's going on in life. Jason and I, we live life. We're, ordinary human beings and individuals, but there might be some things that are happening in your life that we're not experiencing, but it's important. So guys, we definitely want to thank everyone for watching, continuing to listen, and supporting, because it's important. We're using this platform to help people and to promote, mental wellness and health wellness and everything under the sun. So, guys, please continue to watch, subscribe, listen, and comment. We want to hear from you guys. We want to talk about things that are relevant to what's going on in life. So, if anything else, Dr. J, it's been a pleasure, my man.
I just want to thank everybody for the support so far. Very happy with that. And like, Dr. Kyle said, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment. And we appreciate you listening. All right, bro.
All right, sir. Till next time, bro.
No doubt. Later.
All right.